The year is 1918. The Allied powers have defeated the Central Powers in the First World War, and at last, after 4 years of fighting, it finally seems like all is right with the world. Unless you live in Germany. It was generally agreed by many of the Allied powers that Germany deserved most, if not all of the blame for starting World War I, so when the nations of England, France, Italy, and the United States met together in Paris to discuss what would happen after the war, they were not kind to Germany. The Treaty of Versailles stated that Germany lost land, which was then given to France and other countries. They were stripped of their colonies, limits were placed on the size of their military, and they had to give $33 billion to pay for the cost of the war. I know our country is currently $19 trillion in debt, so that may not seem like a lot, but trust me, it was. This conference in Paris also helped to establish the League of Nations, which was a group of over 50 countries that created the Kellogg-Briand Pact, which outlawed war so we would never have another war ever again. That's cute. Spoiler alert, the League of Nations sucked and did not last very long. These rules placed on Germany combined with the worldwide Great Depression sent the country into economic disaster. By the early 30s, 6 million people were unemployed, thousands of children had died from malnutrition, and the value of the German mark continued to drop as the years went on. Then came Hitler, who, spoiler alert, basically just ruined everything for everybody and was just terrible in every way possible. Adolf Hitler was elected in 1933 as the Chancellor of Germany under the National Socialist German Workers, or Nazi Party for short. He greatly emphasized German superiority and supported the ideas of fascism, which stated that extreme aggression in international affairs was essential to a country's success, and did not allow for silly, unnecessary rights like freedom of speech, religion, press, or basically any freedoms at all. Yikes. It's important to mention that pretty much all of Hitler's political platform was based on anti-Semitism, and he used his position of power to blame the entire Jewish population for all of Germany's problems. Yikes times 2. Immediately after taking office, he changed the rules to give himself total authority and began stripping the Jews of their basic human rights. Originally, his plan was just to force them all to leave the country, but after that didn't work, the Nazis began performing mass exterminations in concentration camps, like Auschwitz and many others. Fascism was on the rise in Italy and Japan as well. In the 1920s, another man by the name of Benito Mussolini came to power in Italy, and he's widely considered to be one of, if not the founder of fascism.
Why don't we do this more often? Why don't we just
Yikes.
get together again?
And in Japan, the government was mainly run by military leaders instead of their emperor. By 1937, they had already occupied parts of China, and the League of Nations was greatly protesting their actions. As mentioned before, fascism supported extreme aggression in international affairs, meaning that if Hitler wanted something, he just kind of took it. Very shortly after taking office, Hitler violated the Treaty of Versailles by building up an army to aid in his plans to conquer most of Eastern Europe. And for some reason, the League of Nations didn't do anything about it. Even after Hitler had obtained Rhineland and Sudetenland, annexed Austria, and teamed up with Mussolini and the Japanese, the League of Nations allowed it because they just really didn't want to start another world war. In fact, Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Union even signed a non-aggression pact with Germany in order to ensure that they would not attack each other. Spoiler alert, all of this failed, and they started another world war. The League of Nations was like, okay, you can have that land you already took, but just don't take Czechoslovakia. And Hitler was like, alright, you got it. And then he took Czechoslovakia. And the League of Nations was like, dude, we told you not to do that, give it back. And Hitler was like, oh yeah, make me. And then everyone was like, well, I guess this is kind of getting out of hand, but we still don't want to start a war, so maybe we'll just let him have it. And then he took Poland, and that's when the shiitake mushrooms hit the fan, my friends. On September 3rd, 1939, England, France, Australia, and New Zealand all declared war on Germany. 2 days later, the US declared their neutrality, even though they sent supplies to the Allies and really weren't all that neutral, but they liked to pretend that they were. The US didn't officially join the war until 1941, when Germany's ally Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii as a way to slow down the American military so that Japan could conquer China. That worked for the most part, however, it also just made the Americans really, really angry, and they declared war on December 8th, 1941. And because ain't nobody messing with Germany's clique, they declared war on the US 3 days later.